Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is session 5, Global Carbon Market Growth and Infrastructure. Today we're going to cover topics around the Korea compliance market, as well as the existing offset market, where we see that going. So the theme of the panel, as described in our agenda, as the world accelerates towards scaling carbon markets, Asia is emerging as both a demand signal and providing ground for infrastructure innovation. So in this panel, we'll have perspectives from the Korea Exchange and NH Investment and Securities, and we'll be discussing how new market structures, international linkages, and institutional capital are shaping the next phase of carbon trading. So essentially, we're going to look at the history of the Korea ETS and how it's evolved. We're going to talk through some more recent policy developments, which are coming up soon, still coming up this year, and then as we enter phase 4 next year. And then we're going to think through what's next for the Korea ETS program, and then in particular the role of offsets. And around offsets, how are firms using them domestically for voluntary purposes? How will they play a role in the compliance market? So we have a pretty wide variety of topics here and ground to cover, but very excited to have our two guests here. I'm going to have the guests introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the dialogue. So first to my left here, we have Chang Yun, who's the head of carbon markets for the Korea Exchange, or KRX. So Chang has been with KRX for nearly 19 years now, and this year has become the head of carbon markets. So Chang, maybe I'll turn over to you just a quick intro, and maybe even an overview of the Korea Exchange as well.
Yes, nice to meet you all. I'm Chang Yun, head of carbon markets at Korea Exchange. I've been at the Korea Exchange for 19 years, mostly product development or market regulation jobs at equities market and derivatives market. The carbon market is a new challenge for me. This year I took the job of head of carbon markets, and I found it very interesting. And it was a very opportune time because in Korea there was a political change, and the new president is very eager to make policies regarding climate change response. So the ministries are making a lot of efforts, actually making a lot of pressures on us to do more regarding climate change response. So today as Russell said, we're going to introduce our emission trading system and the recent developments to revitalize the compliance market. And we also would like to introduce the plans to create Korea Exchange voluntary credit market in Korea, probably next year.
Thank you. And then for NHIS, we have Ho-Win Bae, who's an investment manager for the carbon portfolio and has been in the carbon markets for around 9 years, first with a project developer and now on the trading side as well. So maybe just a brief background and an introduction of NHIS.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Russell. And thank you for the invitation to be here. So my name is Ho-Hyun, and I'm currently working for NH Investment Securities as a carbon portfolio manager. And prior to joining the NHIS, I've been spending more than 6 years as a project developer, and one of the projects that I was involved in was the Clean Cook Stove project in Myanmar, and that project was the first project approved by the UNFCCC as of Article 6.4. So there were many times to be engaged in the project development. But 2 years ago, I felt like it is very important to unlock the private finance to scale the climate action across the world. So that's why I joined NHIS to provide more carbon financing solutions to the Korean corporate clients. So just to give you more background about NH Investment Securities, we are a financial company, one of the largest financial companies based in Seoul, South Korea. And also we are actively engaging in the Korea ETS and the global voluntary carbon market. So as a market maker, we trade the compliance carbon credits on a daily basis in the Korea ETS. And also we finance the high quality carbon projects to secure the supply of the carbon offsets and provide the offsets to the Korean corporate clients. So we have many things to share, and I'd be great to discuss about how we can shape the Korean carbon market in the long term, so that more and more global investors can be interested in this market and find more opportunities in this market. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So if maybe we want to start to set the foundation around the Korea ETS. So, I mean, Korea is definitely seen as a leader in the space, and now we see more and more compliance markets emerging, driven by things like CBAM and Article 6, where firms need to comply with a UN program, but they need their own domestic policy in order to do so, and their own infrastructure. So, I'm sure you have plenty of other countries looking at Korea as an example and trying to learn from how you've developed the structure. So, Chang, maybe if you could provide an overview of the start of the ETS and how it's evolved over the years.
So it's been 10 years since Korea started the compliance carbon market, and it has been a great journey for us. After 10 years now, Korean corporations are quite accustomed. We have over 800 covered entities in Korea. They have now 10 years of experience in trading in compliance carbon market. So they are quite ready and ready to face with challenges ahead. The volume of the compliance market has been gradually increased for the last 10 years, especially after the market makers substantially increased its participation in 2023. So the volume is increasing. At the time, last year, 2024, 409,000 tons per day is the average volume. The average volume is still quite low compared to the European trading system. But the one thing is that our market has been only open to the covered entities largely and some market makers. So our market has been a little bit closed market. That is because the corporations were worried that the market manipulations by the financial companies can happen, and that can lead to the undue burden on the corporations' emission targets. And price, regarding the price, actually the price of Korean allowance was quite similar to the allowance of European Union in 2020. So until then, I think the Korean market was looked functioning very well to international community. But after that, the price of Korean allowance plummeted after the COVID crisis. The main reason was that the allocation plan for the last 5 years was created before the COVID crisis. At that time, the government couldn't predict the economic stagnation or economic slump will come. So the allocation plan was solely based on the pre-COVID economic projection. So government mostly over allocated the carbon allowance that is the main reason why the price has been subdued from 2020. Also, the economic stagnation was worse than expected, even after taking into account of the COVID crisis. So that was the main reason our allowance price was subdued until now. But as I said, in Korea now, with the new presidency, we think the price of allowance will have a very promising period. So I will explain about that later.
That's great. And no, it's in this market. It's a very global market, and when we have customers and project developers and they're looking for an outlet for their credits, they're definitely following trends about where things are strengthening around the world and where we see activity. And obviously, we have plenty of headwinds here in the United States, but areas like Korea, it's positive to the entire market, and we're watching it closely to see where those opportunities will emerge. So, Ho-Hun, maybe you can discuss historically, if we think, the past 5-10 years, from a trading perspective, how have you experienced these markets?
Yes, I would say that our company strategy has evolved mainly by following the government's changing focus for the market. So, as Chang mentioned earlier, in the early days, before 2019, the Korea ETS was mostly about the company compliance. But more recently, the government's main goal has been to improve the market by increasing liquidity. And that's why the government introduced the first market makers to the Korea ETS in 2019. And also a key law.
So just a quick question on that. Were the firm types not allowed to participate, or did the government provide incentives to bring market makers into the space?
Before 2019, only compliance entities like industrial companies.
Only covered entities?
Yes, only covered, yes. They were the only entities that participated in the market in the past. But after 2019, the market makers from the authorized financial institutions like banks or securities company started their activities in the Korea ETS. And a key law regarding the Korea ETS was amended last year to officially allow a wider range of financial institutions like commercial banks, asset managers, pension funds, and so on to participate in this market. So this new policy and legal framework created a much more important role for financial firms like ours. So our strategy shifted to meet this need. And that's why we established the carbon trading desk in 2023 and became one of the 8 market makers in the Korea ETS. And although we were not the first market maker in the Korea ETS, but now we are one of the largest liquidity providers for the Korean carbon credits at the moment.
Okay. And are you active? Is the trading desk active in other markets as well, or primarily in the Korea ETS?
Yeah, sure. Beyond that, we also looked for specific ways to help our clients. And the government allows the Korean compliance entities to use the carbon offset for up to 5% of their compliance. And only Article 6 projects or CDM projects in the past are allowed to generate the carbon offsets or KOC, the Korea offset credits. And for some companies, using these carbon offsets can be a more cost-effective option than just buying the carbon allowances in the market. So seeing this specific need, our strategy was to directly invest in the carbon offset projects to secure supply and offer our clients more flexibility and cost control in their compliance strategy.
Thank you. And Chang, maybe you could discuss in a little bit more detail, because I know the Korea Exchange works very closely with the Korean government on developing this policy and providing feedback. Can you elaborate a little bit on the changes that are coming that allow brokers into this space for the first time?
Sure. So the Korea Exchange is working with government very closely because the government has limited resources to think about the carbon markets. The carbon market is very complicated, and government officials usually depend on us to think about the details of the carbon markets. So nowadays, because of the new presidency, we are thinking about many initiatives. First of all, as Bei said, from this November, the financial institutions will be allowed in Korean allowance market. So as I said, it was a closed market, but now the Korean insurance companies, the banks, and other financial institutions will participate. Still, the foreign entities are not allowed at this time, but because the government is modeling after the EU ETS, government is thinking about it. So it should be a long-term consideration, but you can expect sometime in the future, Korean government will allow the foreign participation in spot ETS market. Interesting thing is that next year we are planning to list futures on Korean carbon allowance. And at the time, it is not determined yet, but foreign participation may be allowed in the futures market based on the Korean allowance. But it is not still decided. We have to consult more, especially the companies from industry sector. So it is not determined, but we are trying to increase the exposure to the foreign entities to our allowance market. Also, the most important thing is that because of the new presidency, as I said, the reason why the allowance price plummeted in 2021 was due to the oversupply of the allowance. And it was because of the over-allocation. This year, we are at the time making the allocation plan for next 5 years. And at the time, it will, government and is trying to create a very strict cap and increase the ratio of paid allocation. So that is the most important thing, I think. So the allowance market price will, in my opinion, largely recover for the next 5 years. Already, the Korean allowance price has been rising recently. It was around 8,000 Korean won about 2 months ago. But nowadays, it is over 10,000 Korean won. So it is already increasing. We are seeing that kind of change in the compliance market. Also, the reason why the EU ETS allowance price was rising even after the COVID crisis was that they had some issues regarding gas price, and they also had some good mechanisms such as the market stabilization reserve. Korea government is at the time trying to adopt a very similar style MSR, the market stabilization reserve. So if the next phase, if the allowance price goes down too much, government will directly intervene in the market and buy some allowance to stabilize the price. So a lot of things, a lot of good things are happening in Korean compliance market, and because for me personally, I think it is quite obvious that allowance price will increase, but still the foreign participation is not allowed. But we'll see, and the futures market might be open next year very soon.
Thank you. And so as the market evolves, has KRX had to adjust the infrastructure at all just for these recent policy developments? I mean, we'll touch on what it could mean opening up the market to international participants, but just allowing for non-covered or non-obligated entities to trade in these markets. Have you had to adjust how these new firms will access the market and how they interact, I guess, with the existing market participants today?
So at the time, the KRX compliance market is a direct membership system. So the covered entities and market makers, they are all our members. So they are not going through brokers to trade our market, like in equities or derivatives market. Because we are stock and derivatives exchange, we are accustomed to the broker system much more. We are not accustomed to the direct membership system. So, and the new entities from international side, I think it is more easier if they can trade in KRX market without becoming carbon market member. So it is, I think, better access to the international the investors and also to the non-covered entities in Korea, such as financial institutions.
And I'm pleased to share that NH Investment and Securities is the only financial company that chosen by the government to, lead a pilot program to develop the new brokerage system for the Korea ETS. So we are working very closely with the Ministry of Environment and the Korea Exchange for this system development. And as he mentioned earlier, once the system is completed this November or this December, and more financial institutions can directly trade their compliance carbon credits on our own system. So we are very looking forward to this system operational, and there will be many chances for international investors as well.
Do you see when the brokers enter the space, or as you guys develop and partnership and launch the platform, is it still going to be acquiring the credits on behalf of corporate clients and maybe aggregating them for corporate clients? Or do you see the development of funds and other types of financial tools emerging or products emerging?
I think there will be some discussions about developing new products for compliance carbon credits in the Korea ETS as well. But I think as the first thing we have to develop for this system is the futures. So, the most of the trading volumes in the EU ETS are covered by futures, and we need these futures to hedge against price changes using these futures, and this is a way to a major market. So I think our focus and priority for the Korea ETS for next year will be the futures.
Oh, so in Korea nowadays, after new presidency, ministries, many ministries have interest in climate policy. So, for example, financial regulator, Financial Services Commission, and Ministry of Economy, and Ministry of Environment, and many others. There are some discussions regarding the permission of more market participants in Korean compliance market other than financial institutions, such as retail investors, and the discussions about creating ETF based on Korean allowance. But at the time, the Korean government is a little bit cautious about retail participation because the Korean allowance market, as I said, it is still closed market. And now it opens to the only Korean finance institutions. So the government financial regulator especially think that the retail might be losing money if they participate in this market, because in this market is quite specialty market, I think. I'm from equity side, equity and their bond side, and I cannot recommend this product easily to the retail investors. So that is the main overall atmosphere in the government.
There's some of the other active commodities on KRX, gold and oil, I believe. Are retail investors allowed to participate in those markets today?
Yeah, we have 3 commodities markets, gold and petroleum and the carbon allowance. And nowadays, gold market is very popular in Korea because our gold market is a spot gold market, and it is a physical delivery market, not the cash settlement market. So nowadays, because rich participants in the market wants to get the physical gold, and the physical gold is hard to get sometimes, and there is a incentive in terms of tax if people trade gold in KRX rather than outside of KRX. So our gold market is very popular in Korea for retail investors.
Yeah, I mean, that's the balance and the difficult part with environmental markets, because you have a phased, responsible approach, but then you also need liquidity. So it's great that they're, the government is and kind of opening up to thinking about different types of participants. I think we need as much liquidity as possible, and people for trading for different reasons, just like every other commodity market. The same is true for voluntary or compliance environmental markets. So we've touched on it a little bit, and I'm sure many in the room are interested in the piece around international participation. So Chang, maybe you could discuss what would that process look like? Is it dependent on how successful this next iteration of the program is, where you're going to have non-obligated entities? If that goes well, then do you think the government starts seriously considering international participation? Will that be phased in? So when can some of the traders around the room, when should they start getting excited about participating in the Korea ETS?
So the reason why government considered the allowance of foreign participation was that the allowance price was too low. But now there is a lot of change in allocation plan for the next 5 years. So I think the price might stabilize. So that could deter from governments allowing foreign participation. But as I said, the government is a little bit progressive about futures market, because futures market is related to the spot market, but still it is not the spot market itself. So government has a little bit more progressive view on the product. So if the price, in case of price stagnating even after the new allocation plan, definitely government will be, cornered to allow thinking about, more foreign participation. But yeah, we'll see. And I think futures market, we will. I personally, I think I will try to persuade government to allow foreign participation.
Yeah, and that's part of that scale. If you think about the voluntary carbon market, when it was really picking up steam, when you had that natural demand, the number of firms that were committing to net zero doubled in 2020. But then, when Expansive had partnered with CME Group on the futures, and you started to see people putting on long-term positions and trading around those markets and funds created, you saw that robust secondary market. I think that's what you still need that. Like every participant needs that, even the natural kind of first movers and natural end users. So maybe the view from NHIS, like how would you see your trading style evolve with the introduction of futures and then with kind of a bigger pool of participants?
Yeah, definitely. The futures allows us to hedge against the price changes, and also, futures is essential for large and institutional investors. And that means if we introduce the futures to this market, then there will be more clients to our platform or brokerage system who want to trade their carbon credits, including both spot and futures products for the Korea ETS. So I also like to highlight that the carbon offset, when it comes to carbon offset, so we just talked about the international linkage between the Korean market and the global market. So I would like to highlight that for carbon offset, international linkage would be a total game changer for our strategy, because it means more and more Korean companies would connect with the high quality carbon projects all over the world. And also, there were some greenwashing claims and issues surrounding the carbon credits for the past few years. Still, many Korean companies have big concerns about using the carbon offsets, even for their compliance, because there are some NGOs attacking the companies who uses the bad carbon credits. So, anyway, if the international linkage happened, then our strategy would instantly become global, and also there will be more opportunities. But when we think about this, I think two things will be crucial. So first, as mentioned earlier, trusted and high quality carbon credits must be provided from the market. And the thing is that everyone, governments, corporates, researchers, NGOs, or local communities, everyone should agree on what a good carbon credit looks like. So without this social consensus, as mentioned earlier, the greenwashing concerns surrounding carbon credits would continue forever. So this is the key, one of the keys. And second is that we need a shared technology for trading. So we are talking about the cross-border carbon trading, and just imagine that how the SWIFT system for banking. When we think about the SWIFT system for banking, it just works because there is a global infrastructure for banking and transaction. And when we transfer our money to our friends or families, other companies in other countries, we have no concerns about any accidents or issues transferring our money. So same thing must be applied to the carbon market. So that's why I think technology and trust will be a crucial factors to scale this market and build a real trust.
Sure. Now you touched on a lot of key elements. The last one, as part of our recent MOU with KRX in terms of how do we assist in providing some of that infrastructure, meaning the international participants in an automated way, just like you said. How can we mitigate or eliminate the counterparty risk and delivery risk? So I think we have those tools. It's more about maybe some of the subjective things that you discussed. Well, the infrastructure is there. This is the most transparent commodity market in the world. Every detail of every project, you can find it on the registry. You can dig into it. It all moves around ledgers that you can go back and see their entire history. And we're going to work with KRX to make sure that information and that infrastructure is all available through their systems. But it's then, well, great, you have all the information, but what's the right information that's going to help facilitate like buying decisions? And it's interesting because we have the ICVCM and core carbon principles and large international global efforts, but a lot of this market has come back to the compliance, and they've come back to, well, what's the UN saying? What meets CORSIA standards? Kind of back where we were in 2019 and 2020. And now I think it's perhaps an opportunity for the government as well, and in particular in this with KRX, to set those guidelines in terms of what would be an acceptable offset credit within the ETS. But Cheng, I'm interested to think from your standpoint as you straddle the technology piece, financial markets, as well as the policy side, how do you see that question of integrity and how offsets will play a role in the Korea ETS?
Yes, so the Korean government is really committed to the carbon reduction of Korea. It is not a joke. They are really committed. Nowadays, I'm meeting a lot of government officials and sometimes minister. So it is a true willingness towards the carbon reduction. And we have a compliance market. So it is a very effective tool to reduce carbon. But government wants to complement that carbon emission compliance market with carbon credit market inside Korea. So government recently urged us to create KRX carbon credit market in Korea. That is related to issues just mentioned here, the quality and information. For example, quality. So there are quality issues. Some of the Korean companies, in the past, they bought some carbon credits, and as they said, that they was criticized very badly in Korea. And I think there was a similar incident in international stage too. So government and us are very cautious about the quality of carbon credits. So when we create the KRX credit market, there will be a focus of new confidence. So we will list only the highly rated carbon credits by the international raters such as the B0 and MSCI. And second thing I focus is that the information. So because I was asked by the government to create the KRX carbon credit market, I contacted several most largest companies in Korea. For example, Samsung Electronics and SK and other largest companies in Korea. And they seem quite perplexed, like us, about the carbon credit market, because carbon credit market is so complicated, and it is very hard to understand, and it is quite a burden for them to assess whether they can buy this carbon credit without quality issue or not. So what we're trying to do is that we kind of limit the carbon credit that Korean companies can buy. We kind of compare this process to listing of equities. So we're going to list only the highly rated carbon credits in KRX carbon credit market, so that the companies can just buy it without too much thinking about the quality. That is the main our two reason. two main components are our design of the KRX carbon credit market. And also the third one is that we have concluded MOU with Expensive. I'm sorry. Which is the, I found out, to my surprise, I found out kind of the only viable exchange in the world. So I was kind of surprised, and then so we made a decision to integrate the markets with Expensive, because KRX market is not only for Korea. We have a great ambition. We have a great ambition of carbon credit. Not just credit, carbon compliance and carbon market hub of the Asia, at least Asia. So we witnessed that the Singapore and Japan and Indonesia, Malaysia, a lot of nations actually created the carbon credit market, and they all very illiquid. And we decided not to copy that strategy. We decided to connect with the global liquidity hub, Expensive, to allow international investors can trade in our carbon credit market. A final thing I would like to add is that Korean government is eager to create carbon credit by Korean companies within Korea and outside Korea. So recently we have met many companies in Korea that saying that they can create carbon credits, especially the high-tech methods. So the Korean government's intention, one of the intention is that foster the industry of carbon reduction in Korea. Not just in Korea, by Korean companies in Korea and outside Korea. Korean government even have an intention to use some tax revenue to support these Korean companies creating carbon credits. So Korean government's willingness is very strong. That's I would like to let you know.
No, it's great, and it's a positive signal. Again, there'll probably be some gloomy themes around Climate Week, in the U.S. this week, but it's great to see that leadership and forward thinking and that evolves. And I agree, as it takes off and when it is successful, as we believe it will be, I think we'll see that spread. So hopefully that is the case, where you see that developing as the hub for trading in the region as well. From the NHIS perspective, I know we have a few minutes. We'll try to leave some time for questions as well. But just quickly, hearing that and thinking from a project developer standpoint, because you guys also invest in projects, how does that change your mindset? Does that motivate? Do you go out and develop more projects? Are you following the policy? Are you thinking these projects now instead of what we thought of maybe a year or two ago?
In that case, there are many stories to share, but I'd like to highlight the two things. One is Article 6 readiness, and the other thing is building demand for the carbon credits. So when we talk about Article 6 readiness, there's a story about our project and one of the projects that we have invested in is a clean cook stove project in one of the Asian countries. And actually, the project was supposed to go with the Article 6.4 project because we wanted to get the KOC, which can be used for the KETS. But the thing is that there is a big delay in transition to Article 6.4. So we changed our strategy, and now we are trying to register the project with gold standard. So now all the process is ongoing. But the voluntary carbon the prices in the voluntary carbon market is not that good compared to other compliance market like Korea carbon market. So we wanted to upgrade our project to a Korea carbon project by getting the letter of authorization for corresponding adjustment from the host country. So I visited the host country and met with official government official to discuss about the possibility of corresponding adjustment. But his feedback was like, we have no legal framework to issue the LOA, and we have no infrastructure for reporting and transferring the carbon credits to other countries. And also we have no budget. So please help us to build this infrastructure. So I realized that it would take a few more years to complete this corresponding adjustment process. So for us, from this experience, we have learned that it is very important to make an investment. When it comes to carbon, it is very important to make an investment in the countries that are ready for Article 6 framework. I mean, the corresponding adjustment. But still, there are very few countries that have a legal framework for corresponding adjustment. But hopefully, there will be more and more countries to authorize this kind of corresponding adjustment. And the second thing is that it's really important to build new demand for this market, and real demand is always built on trust. So as I mentioned earlier, there were many greenwashing claims in South Korea as well, but we still see some positive changes nowadays. So some companies are getting interest in purchasing the voluntary carbon credits for their net zero targets in the long term, but also to address their clients' demand, because their clients want to reduce their scope 3 emissions. And there are many Korean companies that export their products to the US or Europe or to South America. So to manage their scope 3 emissions, so some of the clients are requiring them to reduce their scope 1 and 2 emissions, or just purchasing the carbon removals to offset their residual emissions. So some Korean companies are coming to us to ask about how they can procure the carbon credits. So we are going to guide them, help them procure the carbon credits in the market. And I think, and also we are pleased to announce that we just signed an MOU with Expansive today, this morning. And we believe that Expansive is a great platform to access the high quality carbon credits anytime. And there, I think many Korean companies can be onboarded to Expansive platform to procure the carbon credits that they want to have. So I believe this kind of partnership between two companies can help create new demand for the voluntary carbon market for South Korea, maybe right now.
I appreciate that. I know we're over time. Do we have time for questions? So do we have any questions for the panelists?
Thank you both. Well, thanks everybody for a great panel. Chang, you were talking before about the ambitions of the Korean government taking decarbonisation very seriously. Just when you look at some of the other markets around the region, I think you mentioned Singapore, you mentioned Japan. What is it that you think is unique about Korea's approach in particular relative to those other markets in terms of creating the right level of access to international projects, the right level of participation by the industrial corporates that form part of the Korean economy?
I think Korea cannot be compared to Singapore, because Singapore is a city country and Korea is a industrialized country. Japan is a little similar to Korea. So Korea has all compliance market. Japan next year they gonna have a compliance market, but Korea has 10 years of experience and the political will of tightening the carbon market. So it seems we are quite mature. I mean, like coiled to be jumping soon. And Japan is actually Japanese people visit us a lot, and not just Japan. Many Asian countries are actually preparing for creating compliance market, and they visit us a lot. And we are a leader in Asia, we think. Carbon credit market, we are not the leader at the time, but with the international exposure, with expensive, I think we are ready to be the leader of the carbon credits too. And carbon credits, as you know, the demand is very important. And in Korean compliance market, we already incorporating the carbon credit up to 5% of the each covered entity's emission. So they can use 5% of the emission instead of the allowance. They can use carbon credits. And in the planned KRX carbon credit market, we might create a connection between carbon credit market and KOC, which is a carbon credit used in the compliance market. So I think we have a strong compliance market, so we have a demand, and that is making us a virtuous circle for demand and also the Korean government is eager to create supply within Korea and outside Korea. And I do not believe the Korean companies 100%, but Korean companies, some of them, I think, at least have capability of high-tech carbon credit production, I believe. So I think Korea is quite at a good position to be the hub of Asian carbon market.
And just to give you more details, when it comes to compliance demand, we have three different sources of demand. So one is the corporate side, as Chang mentioned earlier, and also the Korean government requires to secure the ETMOS for the NDC target. So currently, the government's target is to secure the up to 37 million tons of ETMOS, which is quite huge. And also, there is a strong compliance demand from the airlines. Our estimation is that the two major Korean airlines will require up to 6 million tons of carbon credits, which are eligible for Korea scheme, for Korea phase 1. And there will be a big demand for purchasing the carbon credits in the global carbon market from them. So that's why the Korean carbon market is quite different with any other countries like Singapore. So that's why we believe that there will be more opportunities for the global project developers, carbon suppliers, intermediaries, or financial companies will have opportunities to engage in this market.
Just one thing, final, maybe, we're going to create a registry called KRX registry. I haven't named it, but probably KRX registry. So we're going to create a registry that can be recognized by for example, Corsia and other international investors. That is one of our goals, and we are working with. Actually, in Korea, there are registries. You don't know, but we have local registries. especially by the Korean Chamber of Commerce. They have a registry, but we do not, at the time we are assessing the registry, we're going to use the experience of already existing registries in Korea and create a KRX registry that can be recognized by the international community.
Do we have time for another question? Okay. So please, during the reception and afterwards, feel free to come up and discuss any of these topics with the panelists. Hopefully this was helpful. This is a positive sign. We talk broadly, the convergence of compliance and voluntary markets is what we need to enter this next phase, and this is a great example of it. So appreciate leadership of KRX to structure these markets, and then participation by firms like NHIS to help use those markets and fill liquidity. So we look forward to seeing this develop. Appreciate coming and speaking with us today, and thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
And just so if you guys want to stick around and talk to the speakers, they'll be in the theater for a few extra minutes. We have one keynote session left of the day in about 15, 20 minutes, but champagne is out there to get us through the last 30 minutes.